Qatar. Assalamu alaikum. Waheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh. This is a little painful statement that I have to make with regards to a recent article and a continued onslaught, I would say, an attempt to, um, I don't know, what they're trying to do. This is not how you dwell with histories or with traditions which are established and which have a lot of honor and dignity behind them, a lot of contribution and painstaking one, a lot of struggle, lot of knowledge systems that have, or indigenous pedagogical processes, as I call them, that have faced persecution and survived. Um, it's with regards to that. Some of these youngsters who are a little over enthusiastic and a little ambitious, and who think that they are perhaps the smartest kids on the block, do end up making errors, but sometimes they are more than errors, and they need to be course corrected. So, in keeping with my policy of supporting those of all ages in desperate need of knowledge concerning South Asian music in general, and the Gurbāṇī Saṅgīt tradition in particular, and at the express request of Kirit James Singh or Kirit Singh and Jasdeep Singh of the Bhai Mardana of the Mardana Project, I granted the pair tens of hours of interviews conducted in India and the United Kingdom, in which I shared exclusive knowledge, otherwise inaccessible to the public in good faith. I further extended public and private requests for people, including students and family members in India, the UK, and North America, to support the Mardana Project financially, and heard from many others who contributed to the Mardana Project in the belief a primary aim of the project was to document the intangible heritage I painstakingly identified, underwent, and recovered from over 27 grand elders. On account of Kirit James Singh's and Jasdeep Singh's subsequent conduct, as evident in an article by Jasdeep Singh, recklessly tendentious in its unethical omissions and insinuating conjectures, published in the NCPA December 2020 newsletter and posted in abridged form on his personal website, where Kirit James Singh's enablement, without which, quote unquote, this paper would not have been at all possible, end quote, and Saqib Razak's, quote unquote, ongoing support and guidance are prominently acknowledged. And B, in an Instagram story brought to my notice, in which a derisive take on the terms Jodi and Jodi Pakhavaj um, uh, are carried. It carries a derisive take on the terms Jodi and Jodi Pakhavaj, and I'll address them in a moment. I have been left with no choice but to conduct a reassessment. With a heavy heart, I must hereby publicly rescind my support of Jasdeep Singh and Kirit James Singh, as well as of their respective projects, effective immediately, unless and until they personally and publicly demonstrate that they will no longer disregard, misuse, and misrepresent the facts concerning the Gurbāṇī Saṅgīt tradition related to them. I accordingly revoke all past and future permissions to use audiovisual media documenting me, lest the inclusion of my face or voice in any of the projects be mistaken for an endorsement of their doings in the name of Gursikh heritage. It goes without saying that I encourage vigorous academic debate, including counter-referencing and questioning the arguments and decisions I have made in articulating and caring for the needs of the Gurbāṇī Saṅgīt tradition since 1989. Yet, having extended Jasdeep Singh and Kirit Singh the courtesy of sharing forgotten narratives gleaned from extraordinary elders of the Gurbāṇī Saṅgīt tradition I have been blessed to be associated with, I have been appalled by their callous transactional, appropriative and profoundly irresponsible conduct, sowing baseless doubts for the uninformed regarding the sovereign self understanding of the Gursikhs. It must be noted that the elders who entrusted me with the responsibility of carrying forward their harvests were the pillars of the Gursikh Marga in their respective times and renowned for their integrity, scholarship, dignity, honor, and compassion throughout victories, tragedies, and strategic maneuvers. Nobody owns the license to feign wisdom superior to the stream of knowledge whence they suck life. This is not how critical revitalization undertakings are safeguarded and advanced. Decorum must be maintained, and we must not neglect proper etiquette, particularly when dealing with civilizational matters. Um, Talking of, you know, debate, how does it go? It's not that I have not challenged even my own elders. We do. And at times we are corrected. For example, there is a lot that goes in the name of, oh, I've carved my own new style. When you deal with core traditions, or it's very dangerous to use the term authentic traditions or pure traditions. The term tradition itself is quite, has been abused. Even when the term tradition is not to be used in common parlance, in the sense that those which are actually traditions um, deserve the right to use these terms, not those who have no idea about the dynamics of tradition, what traditions are actually, the kind of academic integrity, semantic precision, honesty, intellectual honesty are paramount within that. Um, in the name of styles, let's say if I were to go to my granduncles and say, well, I'm creating my own style, I'm doing this, they would have said, wonderful. This is such good news. I'm talking about by Avtar Singh, by Gurcharan Singh, my granduncles, who were like some of the best humor that they possessed. Some of the most, some of the best romantics I've known them as. And their sarcasm was just an icing on the cake, even when they chose to be. And very loving sarcasm. Let's say, imagine me telling them, "Oh, my dear granduncles, I have now carved my own style." They would have said, "Oh, how wonderful! You've carved your own style. This is great news. This is what do you think, big brother? This is great news. That means there's no burden on our shoulders. This young fellow, the new kid on the block, has come of age. So wonderful." So my dear granduncles, I would have then asked, "Can I demonstrate the new style?" They would have said, "Oh no, we are not worthy, dear Baldeep. Oh, our dear grandchild. We haven't yet gained the worth of listening to the grand new style that you've carved for yourself. In fact, so much so that you shouldn't waste time in trying to demonstrate that in front of us. You see that door? There's a latch on that. We had locked it, when we ushered you in. But there's a latch upstairs, up there. You kindly unlock it and quietly close the door after you leave. And do not ever take the trouble to knock on this door again. Wonderful, congratulations. We don't have to teach you no more. You have come of age." This is how they would have very naughtily told me out. What I'm pointing to is the idea of millet. Millet is gained after years and years of perseverance, years and years of resilient study, with a lot of patience, for example, dedication, respect for knowledge, respect for your predecessors. Tin tatte, when I've been in the socio-political arena, I've tried to clean up stuff, and I used to share some of the nuktas which my grand elders have brought to me. One of them were the tin tatte, the three T's, the first is tatta tehzeeb, then tatta tarteeb, and tija tatta tarkeeb. Tehzeeb, tarteeb, and tarkeeb. They're very, very important nuktas. And uh, so if the tehzeeb is not there, there is no passage of the tradition. It is okay. I mean, you can take inspiration from the tradition. You can, create things, lookalikes, or derive from the old stuff. That is okay. That's one kind of music, and which is equally valid. That comes, within the class of contemporary music. You can be inspired by, let's say, a piece of Vivaldi or a Mozart or a Naushad or a Tansen or a Haridas or Guru Sahib's original compositions, or the compositions from the Golden Temple tradition or the Gursikh heritage, or any other music. Let's say Tappa genre, Tumri may inspire you, and so on and so forth. So all of this is possible. Now, on the other hand, let me see if I'm on the right spot. Am I being, where am I? Am I on Facebook or YouTube? I didn't realize where I'm going live. Nevertheless, we'll see wherever we are. So the key is very, very this aspect of millet, for example, is very, very is paramount. Millet is where your endeavor, your purpose is to be a responsible custodian of knowledge. It's not just glorified storekeeping. It's a very, very a serious responsibility how you safekeep knowledge systems. It allows for a very rich new harvest. Sometimes I can go on reciting new stuff, but one of the compositions I often, share. Let me share the mukra of a very, very beautiful composition of a jat paran, of a jat gaj paran, dhat 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 dharan natag dhat dhat dhanan dhanan dhat dhanan 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 dak dhat dhat dharan natag dhat dhat dhanan dhanan dhat dhanan dhanan dhat dhanan dhanan dak nagdak, and it goes on like that. It's been quite a few days. There's another one which comes to my mind. This is my composition. But is it my composition? Could be the immediate question you could ask. Well, it is not just my composition, because if I had not undergone the process of millet, the educative process, or the Santhya Vidhi, or the Talimati Silsila of the Parampara, I would not have gained the capacity to poet such compositions, to write, to pen such kind of compositions. And same goes vis-a-vis when I am not just singing ancient compositions, where I have been made to specialize the vocal ornaments that were present at the time, or that were in vogue for centuries before the, let's say, before the 19th and the 20th centuries. I specialize in the ornaments, musical ornaments, vocal ornaments from the 12th, 13th century till the 18th, late 18th century. That is what has fascinated me over the years as well. The compositional structures, for example. So when I am, let's say, when a musical composition occurs to me, it adheres to those standards. It follows, it matches up by way of inspiration, by way of guidance to the repertoire that comes from those eras, if I may. So the point I'm making is that a good understanding of heritage music, or tradition, if I may, again very cautiously and carefully reuse the term, it makes for a richer contemporary harvest. Let me give you an example. In a, I can do it without a tanpura ever. Ga ga ma ga re sa re ni da ni sa ga ma ga re sa ni da ma re ni sa ga ma ga re ma sa ni da ni sa ga ma da ni sa ni da ma ga re sa 17 beats. Hamari pyari amritadari gur nimagana manade tari re. Hamari pyari amritadari gur nimagana manade tari re. Darazana barazana sarazana harazana rang rangi kartari re. Kedarama gurgam Haradama nejama harakanda nanagurari re amari pyari amritadari gur nimagana manadetari re. This is a 17 beat Shikhar Tal composition. It goes Hamari pyari amritadari gur nimagana manadetari re Hamari pyar. So this, for example, was told to me by my younger granduncle, Bhai Avatar. Out of the two granduncles, I first sang it for him. He said, "This is heritage. Do not think that this is your composition, because if you had not undergone the pedagogy of the parampara, this would not have been possible." So there is a very beautiful bond between the contemporary harvest of a serious student of a tradition with the ancient harvest safe kept by some of the finest exponents and predecessors of that serious student or an advanced student of parampara. Likewise, when you are associating yourself by way of learning with some of the finest poetry that has been written, your poetic expression would also be very qualitative. It will also be quantitative without being boring, without being monotonous. So these are some of the nuktas, some of the theorems that, if I may, that one needs to understand before venturing into the kind of, adventures that these two fellows and perhaps some of their associates and people who mentor them or guide them have taken the liberty to do. Perhaps they did not realize that the parampara is very conscious and very aware of all of these attempts to create nothing out of, something out of nothing. Students, if I may underscore before I leave, they need to first learn the tradition, any tradition, comprehensively. Let me say that again. Students, research scholars need to understand, and by learning the tradition, understand the tradition by actually undergoing the pedagogical process. And it may be any tradition, if I may underscore that. But that learning must be comprehensive, without malice. If you enter into that space of learning with malice, you won't reach far. Knowledge can be like touch me not, Sharmili, It can whiff ill intent before even the masters would sort of conclude that there is something fishy out here. So they need to first learn, or you all need to, all those who are listening today and in the times to come, that you must learn any tradition comprehensively, responsibly, before attempting speculations and rendering conclusions about it. Premature opining has never served anyone ever. Just know that. If people have their own style, as I've if I may again underscore, Bhai Avtar Singh Gurcharan Singh, as I said, would have shown the door to me. And that idea of millet is a very, very painstaking one. It's very important. This is just to reiterate. Tradition is one thing that I can study. It's a very important point I'm making. Tradition is one thing that I can study, that it lives in my learning, not in my teaching. It's a poignant fact. And it's a heart-wrenching fact that parampara ਮੇਰੇ ਸਿਖਾਉਣ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਿੰਦੀ, ਮੇਰੇ ਪਰੰਪਰਾ ਜਿਉਣ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਮੇਰੇ ਪਰੰਪਰਾ ਦੇ ਸਿੱਖਣੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ। ਪਰੰਪਰਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਉਸਤਾਦੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ, ਪਰੰਪਰਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਸ਼ਾਗਿਰਦੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਣਪਦੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਬਹਾਰਾਂ ਮਾਣਦੀ ਹੈ। ਇਹ you must understand this very, very simple nukta, but it's not easily gotten, this nukta, and it's not easily understood. Oral traditions are being continually undermined. That debate has long been over. And the authenticity of the oral traditions long been settled. With regards to the names of Baba Maiya Singh, the sons of Baba Maiya Singh. Who's Baba Maiya Singh? He's my teacher. I have a few elders who are in my teacher's generation. They were caretakers, custodians of the parampara. Bhai Arjan Singh Tarangar. Then my Taya Ustad, Bhai Ram Singh of Tata Tippa. I could not meet him, but I met his grandson and my granduncles. And another granduncle of mine from the village, Bhai Ratan Singh, who studied with him as well and passed on a lot of knowledge. Then my Dada Guru was Ustad Baba Ram Singh of Jammu Court. He was from Amritsar, and a close friend, very, very close friend, like brothers of my great-granduncle Baba Jwala Singh. He was in fact a couple of years senior to Baba Jwala Singh. And his teacher is Baba Poop Singh, and then Baba Kadol Singh, because Baba Poop Singh then instructed Baba Kadol Singh to teach after he, was ill, and he was given instructions. And Baba Harnam Singh, my Dada Guru, Parvat Singh, and Shambhu Singh. These are the three students protagonists who practiced together. I was able to find the family of Parvat Singh. I could not find in the 90s when I went out in search in 94, 5. In fact, I met the grandson of Lala Parvat Singh as early as 92, 91 winter, I think. 92, in fact, he already played with me, Pandit Balkrishnan Sharma, at Javadi. So I would have met him in, I think, the winter of 90 or early spring of 91. Here in this, I think one story, Instagram or wherever it was sent to me, he mentions that the oral traditions have gotten it wrong. It gives alternate 4 names. The point is that it'll be like me telling Jasdeep that your grandfather's name is Kadaka Singh and your great-grandfather's name is Tadka Singh. Your great-great-grandfather's name is Khadka Singh. And I can say that I have evidence to that. This is like as nonsensical as that. You do not tell this to, for example, Bhai Arjan Singh Tarangar is the grand disciple, is the Potra Shagird of Baba Poop Singh. And good luck to everyone, to anyone trying to argue about the name of his grand teacher. Even Mia Kadir Baksh never quarreled with him. So to all those trying their luck with history and interpretation, good luck. But beware. These are some of the finest folks, and nobody ever played nonsense or got away with nonsense with them or from them. Now, with regards to this other article or whatever story, if I may quote Jasdeep, noting it's a little, matlab, muh par girne wali gall hai. When you purani, Pachpanch, there was a story that said that if you try to be over smart, you will outsmart yourself, kind of a thing. The Jodi, and I'm quoting from this image that you see here, the Jodi, which literally translates to a pair and is most often associated with terming couples in a relationship or marriage. What a beautiful and an analogy to put this instrument, Rab ne bada di Jodi, end quote. And then the one below, below on the right here, down there, the revival term Jodi Pakhavaj, which makes little literal sense, is equivalent to saying violin, viola, sarangi, saranda, dilruba, taus. End quote. Now, please understand this is, if you needed a definition of stupidity and BS, this is it. Um, Baba Sham Singh. Baba Sham Singh, in his book, which was written around 1913, in which he makes a very, very beautiful mention of my great great grandfather. That means the grandfather of my great grandfather, Baba Tehel Singh, who was also known because before the Gadar movements and all that, there was a massive thing about those who remain uncolonized at the expense of letting go of their lands. And lands, we're talking about serious land holdings, like tens of thousands of acres, sometimes even hundreds of thousands of acres land. He was made, he was remembered, he was like the ghost figure, one figure from among the Sikhs was known as Bhai Punjab Singh. What does Baba Sham Singh write in his book? Written at, when he was 112 years of age. He was 1801 born. So he was a witness to the legend to the phenomenon of Bhai Punjab Singh. He says, Bhai Punjab Singh Ji. He suffixes Ji. Very respectful mention. Bhai Punjab Singh Ji, Guru ke Beer, the grand warrior of the Guru. Hanuman Beer Sam, who's an equal or a sequel to Hanuman from Ramayana. So this kind of a mention is very, very rare. And what does Baba Sham Singh write about another grand master? He says in 1913, Jodiye Mridangiye. So this, for example, is a term, it's not just an attack on me, for example. I'm the one, this Jodi term, which all of these people, everyone in the world, those who are playing Jodi, know that that is my gift. So you may play any tradition, but this instrument in your hands has been brought by the grace of the Guru, by the save of a certain Bhai Baldeep Singh. This instrument had been left for dead decades ago. Decades ago. It was a little glorified, tokenism, little 5, 6, 10, 15, 20, 40, 50, 100, 200, Khulla bowls, rare person, 100, 200 will be remembered by somebody very rare. Instrument that you play, Jodi, the sizes that you play, the tuning that you do, the playing style that you do is all revived by a Bhai Baldeep Singh. You will learn from me or from one of my students or not, but the fact that you have an instrument Jodi in your hands or Jodi Pakhavaj or Jodi Mardang was again brought by me because everybody in the early 90s was mistaking Jodi for tabla. They were already calling it tabla Jodi. There was a hyphenation. As Jodi Mridangi is used by Baba Sham Singh, it's an ancient, for example, my own chacha, Paisab Swaran Singh Ji Ragi, he is from our village. He's not my biological chacha. It's closer than biological chacha. We are thicker than, our families and ancestors have fought battles together. He is known in my village as Kada Pakhavji. So the one who plays the Pakhavaj, which is like a kada, like a pitcher, like a water pitcher. So these are several ways. And tabla Jodi was also a commonly used term to give it to recover the Jodi as an authentic and a separate instrument, which it is. I am the one who hyphenated it as Jodi Mridang and Jodi Pakhavaj. 2 hyphenations I did. And later on, when I published the first ever audio recording of this instrument, I only used Jodi in that in 2004. It's the first ever publication of the Pakhavaj of Punjab in the history of audiovisual industry. These are not jokes. These are very serious works and undertakings. in the field of recovery, in the field of conservation and restoration. So um, these are a few things that need to be understood by some of you, those who are attempting to study the parampara, who are you know, who are contributing in any way by way of learning that which is ahead. And I hope that this is understood in good light. It is a very painful, appearance that I've had to make today. I've waited. In fact, my response to the article, a very, very sad article. It was a sad read for me, carried by the NCPA. That was, I think, done in December, and I've had to wait as much. I shared a portion of the text. It was just minor edits were made today by me and my team at Anad before I went public. Very minor edits, just to take stock of what all I must address. But I wrote this to both Kirit and Jasdeep a few weeks back that I will be making the statement. They, of course, have, in their wisdom, have chosen not even to respond, and they have not even cared that they have they may have erred, that they have maybe screwed up a little, and that I have been not very happy to look at a few things that they have done. And there is no escaping me. It is not possible. My work, the fruit of my work, is already being celebrated around the world by people who have also gone solo, who've tried to make their own careers without even naming me. But the fruits, the tools at times that they carry are my contributions. And the purpose that I do not like to figure everywhere is because I'm not a tradition. I'm just a custodian. I am a restorer. I'm a revivalist. I'm a conservator of the parampara. And everything in the parampara cannot have my name in it as a prefix or a suffix or anywhere in between. So there is a lot of very, very measured approach and etiquette stemmed by my, well, by my grandma, Bibi Sadkaur. I cannot BS my way into glory, or even if rightfully so, because I've got grand elders standing as guards and always reminding me that I must stay on the ground. My best wishes to you all. Satkartar. May you all be blessed. And I hope that the parampara flourishes, but it must, fly on the wings of, academic integrity, honesty, intellectual honesty, semantic precision. These are very, very important nuktas, theorems, scholarship, authentic scholarship and learning. Music, you see, one is my music and your music. I can make music, you can make music, but some of us, in fact, the finest minds of this generation must choose to invest their time to sift and learn the harvest that still remains, the endowments of the gurus, the bhagats and the Sufi peers, by grace of Guru Nanak, by the wish, the grand will of Guru Nanak, that was brought together. And that is that which is our inheritance. And our future is propelled, is in fact, it must derive its energy. And that is the reservoir of all of our energy, the radiance. They are the sun and we are the moons, isn't it? And if we lose sight of our source of knowledge, source of awakening, source of learning, source of joy, source of courage, compassion, love, meaning, logic, reason, and sight, even when the Maya blinds, it's a very, very serious endeavor. I wish you the very best. Khuda Hafiz. Thank you for listening. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Sat Kartar. And I'm hoping that this will be very helpful and will help us, will work as a guide, as a guiding force, guiding light. This little note of caution and perhaps even a little dant. Gurmeher. Parmeshwar Kripa Kare.